Welcome to Gray Overload. I'm Anthony, and AMD's reversing course on their B450 and X470 motherboards, which will now support Zen 3. With the community pushback of AMD kind of cutting off the 300 and 400 series boards and not getting support of the Zen 3 architecture, AMD has changed course and said that there will be support coming for the B450 and the X470. The 300 series is still not supported. But it was a good thing that the community stepped up and really put AMD and showed them that, what you basically said was that you're going to have support through 2020, the AM4 socket, and you weren't going to just throw this off. There was many different ways AMD could have did this and did it in a way that it would have been more easier pill to swallow, because I believe that this is kind of AMD's problem to begin with. Yes, there may be technical limitations. There's technical limitations to a lot of things, and the thing you have to do is solve them, right? And what AMD did here was when they released the Ryzen 3000 series, they did not have the mid-range boards out. They had the X570 out, but they really pushed that you go to the B450 boards for that mid-range. And they said those are still supported, and they really pushed it. And even MSI, the motherboard makers, pushed it. And what it created was a problem now that you have today, is that with AMD pushing and not having that B550 out there for that mid-range that they could have pushed with that Zen 2 architecture, the Ryzen 3000 series chips, that you created this void that everyone went to the B450. Not everyone needs a X570 board. They don't need that higher end board. I chose a couple B450s last year because for what I was building, I don't need a huge amount of, horsepower that B570 kind of made available, where I was building ITX with a mid-range chip that I want to upgrade to another mid-range chip at some point. With my parents' build, they don't need all the features of a X570, so I went with the B450. And AMD, it's been about a year since they released those chips, or will be about a year since AMD is going to release B550 in June. So AMD, you should have came out with it way, a year ago, so that people would be having your B550 boards, so they would have an opportunity, so you don't have a whole bunch of mid-range boards asking, where's my support going forward? That was really your problem. And if you have problems with your whole mid-range boards that they weren't getting out on time, well, then you should have been already planning to make those adjustments last year in these chips. But then AMD at least came out and corrected, thankfully, the enthusiast community, and it's mostly the enthusiast community that was pushing for this, right? They posted on Reddit, not even on their blog post, just showing how much of a niche this is, but it is an important niche, right? A lot of enthusiasts recommend products to people, and if you're gonna shortchange them, well, they will not usually recommend your products. It's just a cycle we live in. And AMD came out and corrected it. Now, Gamers Nexus basically pointed out a lot of the limitations in one of their recent videos, and they made good arguments on each side. Now, AMD did the right thing here and said we will support the 400 series. The 300 series, I don't think will be getting support. It's just the way it is. And I do not expect the 400 series to have the full features of a 500, or even if they come with a 600 series motherboard, just because there's probably other technical limitations of the newer CPUs that may not be supported. And I'm perfectly okay with that. I think if you want the best experience, and AMD should market it like this, is that the best experience is on the X570, or if they were, this Zen 3 architecture comes out on X670, market as the best experience is at X670, next best is X570, and your least amount of experience is there. Don't expect that everything will operate exactly the same way depending upon what board you have, and that's absolutely okay, right? You're moving technology forward. If you have support for it, so that support is there, that still would be a great benefit to those people that want to jump up to a better processor and don't want to upgrade their motherboard. So there's a lot of aspects to this AMD that you can take advantage of, and I think that you can do very well with it as long as you see those advantages and run with them. If you're not going to, you're just going to come into more roadblocks later on where you're going to upset the community more. So just think about that when you're going through and marketing and designing stuff. I work as a software engineer during the day. I do a lot of testing, a lot of development work, and I know how these things work. I know how roadblocks you run into, and you have to work around them. Testing side, just figuring things out in a testing area, can take just as long or longer than the development part of it, which makes it very difficult to kind of get stuff done and release to consumers because you don't want to have them have a bad experience. It takes a lot of time, a lot of engineering effort, and it takes a lot of people to do it too, right? Or a lot of time to do it. There's trade-offs all over the place. But AMD said that they're enabling the motherboard partners to have those BIOS for B450 and X470. And these are going to be optional BIOS updates. The select BIOS updates are going to only be one way. And they're talking that they're going to be beta BIOS for the Zen 3 in the upcoming year. You can't, and you will not be able to flash backwards. So if you're a person that wants to switch between processors, this is not something you're going to want to do. Upgrade to the B550 boards that are going to enable or keep enabling all those older processors. At least I hope that they do. Who knows? They may not allow the lower end ones. Well, I guess we'll see once they're released. But in doing it, timing of BIOS is going to vary. So if you're a person that was looking to update to a or if you're in the market for a mid-range board and want to get cheap processor now, but then upgrade to Zen 3, sit and wait until June when you can get a B550. That would be my best bet if that's the course you're going to go with, because AMD said that the B550 and then B550 and then the X570 will have full support, and it looks like that's going to be day one, whereas 400 series, it's going to be dependent upon the manufacturer. Now, I do think MSI is probably going to be pushing hard to get their BIOS out as soon as possible for their B450 boards as they push B450 hard that generation. This is the final pathway, AMD said, for the 400 series boards. You will not be able to go to any future CPUs after Zen 3. This is it. If you want to go to that, you will need a 500 series board. And AMD said again, AMD continues to recommend customers choose an AMD 500 series motherboard for the best performance and features of our new CPUs. And while this is it, for the 400 series, the 300 series looks like they were cut off. AMD should have did something like they did before with the AM3, AM3 Plus, AM2, AM2 Plus, and had those options for users and had a clear stepping stone throughout this process. The AM4 socket would have been supportive through this length of time, but you would have had stepping stones where people would have known when the processors were no longer supported in that board, and going forward, the processors could even fit in there, right? It's just that AMD would have had, either features disabled or, stepping stones of it's no longer supported at this point in time throughout these boards over time, over your 3, 4, 5, and maybe 600 series boards, you would have known where you stood overall. So I really hope that AMD takes this to heart, learns a little bit more about how just committing to something needs to be committed to, and how your release cycle needs to really line up properly so that you don't run into issues with this whole scenario again going forward, because really it was because B550 was delayed so much and not out when original Ryzen was out, and all those motherboards were sold. The mid-range was B450s and not B550s. So you had two generations basically of B450s out there, where B550 is coming in so late, it really didn't have that opportunity to. So let me know what your thoughts are on AMD changing course. Did you wish that they also changed course for the 300 series? I think it would have been a good move as well. I just don't think AMD has the amount of expertise needed to do both the 400 and the 300. But let me know what your thoughts are on this whole fiasco that AMD created for themselves, and what do you think the solutions are as well that you would have taken, and does this iron it out to maybe you want to look towards a B550 instead of staying with your B450, or are you looking towards Intel and seeing what they have as well? So with that, I want to thank you for watching. I want to thank you for taking the time to help this channel grow and subscribing. I really appreciate you and everything that this channel, helping this channel grow. It's really fun to see, and I appreciate that a lot. And I know I unboxed that camera if you've seen it, in that nice camera. I'm waiting for an arm or that I can mount to my desk so that I can record. And once that's in, I will be using that as the main video feed. So with that, I do want to say God bless, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.